How important is it for the Bruins to get every ping pong ball possible? How important is it for them to lose every game? Was last night's win, is it really going to hurt them? Is it a big difference between picking first and picking fifth? Who do you want? Who should they want? We need help with this topic, don't we, Mazz?
Yeah, bad win last night. Bad win.
Let's get some help. We call them the Magpies because they're like two birds on a wire who won't shut up. DJ Bean, Pete Blackburn of the What Chaos podcast.
Look at that set. That's beautiful.
That's a good-looking set.
They join us on set. If you're watching the simulcast on NBC Sports Boston, you can see it. How you doing, boys?
Good. How are you?
We're good.
Oh, that sounds decent.
Was last night's win a bad win, DJ? Does it matter for them to get the fourth pick, the fifth pick? Is it a big difference in your mind?
It is a two-person draft, and then once you're at 3, you might as well be at 6 or 7, says the draft people. I think they should be losing every game. Absolutely. Bad behavior.
Okay, it's a two-person draft. Who are the two people? Is it Misa and that Schaefer, the defenseman?
Schaefer and Misa. We had Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects on today and basically said if the Bruins get the first or second overall pick, their decision is made for them. Take whichever one of them is there. And then after that, then you get into which tall kid do they end up picking.
Okay, so listen, I'm going to – a little warning here, Pete and DJ. I'm going to ask you to – and you haven't done it yet. Just don't throw like 14 names at us where it just everything glosses over with the names. It just happens in the NFL draft. Like there's been 14,000 names that get thrown out there. So when you tend to lose people. So let's try and talk in like big picture generalities if you could. But,
okay.
So I like
all of their arms are good. They all have long arms. No problem.
Okay, that's an insight. You have to be following along. No, he's talking about Will Campbell. That's like a quip and a joke now. You see, this is why I don't engage in podcasts because it's just quipping about things you have to pay attention to. DJ, you like Misa?
I love Misa.
Why?
And because of the teddy bear thing and because he's having an incredible year for Saginaw. So he's an awesome offensive player. He's probably going to be more of a wing than a center in the NHL. But the teddy bear toss thing, which if you don't know, in the OHL, there's a thing where at Christmas time, you bring toys for kids and you throw them on the ice when the team scores the first goal. Michael Misa was on the away team when the goal was scored. So he shot them back into the stands and got suspended. In today's day and age of get me a Kachuk, per Mike Felger and everybody else. I'm not saying that Michael Misa is a Kachuk, but if that isn't Kachukian behavior from a top offensive gifted guy, I don't know what is.
So I saw the video. I sent it to you guys.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
we obviously can't play it on the simulcast because we can't play anything on the simulcast.
The litigious teddy bears.
But it's something. Like the fans are into it. The ice gets absolutely deluged with teddy bears.
Oh yeah, no, there's like 1,000 of them out there.
And it's for the kids.
Yeah.
It's for the kids at Christmas. It's like our Christmas in the City toy drives. That would be like Mary in Manchester. Hi, Mary. She came by today. It would be like you coming and donating all these toys for the kids, and Mary shows up and starts tossing them out the door and out the window.
F them kids.
That's what this Misa kid did. He started shooting them back into the stands. Unbelievable.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, but as like a competitive guy, when you get scored on and then you're just getting rained down teddy bears, firing them back and saying F your teddy bears in that moment, that's a great draft profile.
Okay, so the guy that I see hovering around the 4-5 spot. Okay, so there's a Swede, Antoine. What's his name?
Frondel
is sort of in there. Who's the French guy? What's his name, Mazz?
The French. Oh, Desnoyers. Caleb Desnoyers
is in there. And then there is a big winger, Martone?
Porter Martone.
That's a guy that feels Bruin-y to me. DJ, I'll start with you because he's
big and slow.
6'3", 210, power forward. Like it feels like that guy profiles to the Bruins. How do we feel about Martone?
Yeah, I mean, it's either Porter Martone or it is Roger McQueen, the two very tall offensive players. Martone is more of a wing, and McQueen is a center. McQueen is bigger. He's 6'5". He had a back injury this year. I imagine that would scare some teams away, but we asked today Cam Robinson, again, the elite prospects guy who knows everything about these players. I asked specifically about Martone. Is he just tall and bad like the players that the Bruins draft? And he said he would be different from the type of player that the Bruins draft because the offensive skill is that he is a very, very skilled guy who would be in this conversation even without his size.
What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that too. I've also heard Jake O'Brien is one of the guys that's kind of off the board. But the more that I've talked to people, including Cam this morning, says he really likes Jake O'Brien. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was a name that climbed up the list, and he kind of fits the profile of what the Bruins usually go for too. And he's a center.
Most talented offensive player outside of Misa, said Cam Robinson of Jake O'Brien.
We've reached our limit on names. Jake O'Brien, okay, feels like a Bruin. Like, I don't know, there's just something about the O'Brien thing is they're going to fall into.
Well, right, and I'll just tell you, on the list I'm looking at, he's projected to go 11th, and it would be just like the Bruins to reach to an area that no one else would go to and get it wrong.
How's this draft overall?
This is not good.
Not great, but not as bad as I think initially feared. I didn't like that. I think it was Frondell when Robinson was on with us. He was talking about him as like one of the really better offensive players in this draft. And he was like, probably view him more as a second line center. And that to me, reminds me of, you remember when the Bruins drafted Trent Frederick in
third
the first
line
round?
Center.
They came after, they were like, hey, I think we got a good third line center here. You're like, sir, you spent a first round pick on the player. What are you doing? I do worry that this draft might end up having a lot of those. These guys will be NHL players, but not stars. And that's why I think you lose these games and you improve your chances at 1 or 2 and you try to get Misa.
I think that the feeling that I can't escape is just like wishing that this year's draft was next year's draft, because it's the first time the Bruins have been bad in forever. Next year's draft is supposed to be awesome. You have a generational guy at the very top. Like, that's the draft that you want to be in right now. Unfortunately, this year's draft seems to kind of suck depending on who you talk to. The good news is the Bruins will probably suck next year too, and they'll probably be in the mix.
What I fear though most with that is that the last thing, whether it's good draft, bad draft, whatever, the last thing you want is the Bruins making a decision and thinking through who should we take here. It would be, even if it were a bad draft, give me here are the top 5 players and here the order in which they should go. What scares me about this draft is that it is a conversation once you get to 3, and that the Bruins, if they are picking 4, 5, 6, will be thinking about it and love the organization. But when they think about draft picks, they don't do so hot.
Okay, so look, I recognize that they're probably not going to be in the top 2, but we had heard yesterday that of those guys at the top 2 that you're talking about, that Schaefer was a consensus number 1. DJ, are you saying that you would take Misa over Schaefer if you had the number 1 pick? And if so, are you doing that just because he's a forward and the other kid's a defenseman and the Bruins need a forward? Or why would you pick him?
No, I don't necessarily have one over the other. I think that it's just more important that you end up getting one of those. I have no problem if they draft a defenseman first overall or second overall or wherever it may be, if that is their guy. Right now, their young players are so unimpressive that it's not like you can say, well, they don't need a defenseman, or that if you get a defenseman, okay, well, you can trade McAvoy now. Their defensive prospects going forward do not look amazing. So if Schaefer is the best guy, and most people do have him as the number 1, and you get number 1, take him. But I'm more tantalized with the offensive player, but that's just me liking goals.
Not to mention, like, you don't know what your timeline is right now. And so if you take a defenseman and you already like what you have at defenseman, trade one of the defensemen that you already have that's closer to being a valuable asset to a contending team. Like, you have options if you're the Bruins, because you have no idea where you are.
Who is though? Like,
hold on. DJ Bean, Pete Blackburn. We call them the Magpies because they don't shut up. But I think they've mostly behaved. There's been only 1 or 2 quips or jokes that you had, like, you have to inside references or listen to other shows. Like, they're being generally okay.
Mazz, talking about Will Campbell on a Boston sports radio show.
Yeah, just keep it simple.
No fun, guys.
Just don't make people think. No. Well, what's he talking about? Short arms. 5th overall pick, I think, has an 8.5% chance of the first overall pick, and the 4th has like a 9.5. It's really marginal between 4 and 5. And, oh, by the way, the lottery, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just for the first pick. It could be 1, 2, or 3. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So you're not just vying for the first. You can move up to any of those first 3 positions. Real quick, Pete, I'm going to go back to something you said, that given how it looks, the Bruins are going to be right back there in the mix next year for the first overall pick, where there is a generational talent. Quickly, who's the generational talent next year?
Gavin McKenna.
Okay. What is he?
Medicine Hat.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. He's got 150 points in junior this year. He's absolutely lighting up. He's considered like the best generational prospect, I think, since like McDavid.
Yeah, I mean, or since probably.
Okay.
And that's the WHL. Big boys playing against tough competition, not just you walk in there and you score a million goals. They push you around.
The worst team in hockey has a 13.5% chance of winning the first overall pick. So there's no great shakes even being the worst team in hockey. But Pete, you think they're going to be one of the worst teams in hockey next year? I'm telling you, they're not.
I mean, it depends. Like, who's their coach? What's their roster look like? There's so much uncertainty with this team heading into next year. But given how many pieces away they are from actually having a good lineup and a good roster, I don't think that they're going to address it in one offseason unless they get extremely creative, kind of like the Washington Capitals
did. Let me just stop you.
But the Washington Capitals also had prospects, and the Bruins don't.
Let me stop you. I'm not telling you they're going to be a good team, but worst in the league bad? I mean, just if Swayman rebounds just halfway, McAvoy rebounds just halfway, Pastrnak keeps doing what he's doing, those three guys alone are going to keep you out of the top 3 to 5 teams. So like the rest of the roster, it's hard to be the worst team in the league with a good goalie, a good defenseman, and a 100-point guy up front. And you know how they operate. They're not going to want. They're accepting this year, but ownership isn't going to accept another year out of the playoffs. They're going to try and make the playoffs next year. Whether they do or not, I don't know. But they're not going to the bottom of the league. Forget that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the league, but I said they're going to be in the mix. I think that they are a few years away from climbing out of being a bottom third of the league kind of team.
Mazz, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was going to say, you don't think there's any chance of them getting out sooner than that, Pete? And when I ask you, I cite the Blues, who didn't the Blues sign a couple of restricted free agents from Edmonton?
The Blues stole 2 players, and that was amazing. And if you can do that, great. But the Bruins kind of need their draft picks too.
And the Blues weren't bottom of the league; they were middle of the pack, and they kind of still are a little bit. Like they've had an unbelievable run recently, but they were never like a horrible. There is nothing kind of coming down the pipeline sort of team.
And the Blues have a good coach.
Interesting on that.
They're not going to be able to buy their way out of it next year either because the free agency class mostly stinks, right?
Isn't Mitch Marner in there?
Mitch Marner, Pete was saying bring Nikolai Ehlers to Spokane.
I would take Ehlers over Marner just based off of the price tag that Marner is going to command. They're talking about him potentially being the highest paid player in the entire NHL for at least one season next year before Connor McDavid gets his next deal. I'm not paying Mitch Marner that kind of money.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple things before we let you go. One is, what exactly happened with what? And I know you guys know because you grab ass with players and you suck up to players, and so you know things.
People just like us. We're nice, Michael.
Well, that too. Fine. So I guess that goes hand in hand. People like you. They tell you things. What was going on with the Bruins this year in the room? Because it stunk from the first week of the year, and I don't feel like it's gotten any better. And what stinks in that room? What happened?
The fixes, and this isn't oversimplification. I think the fixes weren't as big of fixes as we all thought they were.
You're talking hockey. I'm talking something else.
No. I do mean, I think like the fixes, like getting those guys from Vancouver. And I don't know if it was too much pressure on them or if Zadorov came in thinking that he was going to be more of a leader on the team or whatever. But clearly it all started off with those guys not fitting as well as we thought. And then on top of that,
so hold on. How did it start with that and not the Jeremy Swayman holdout?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the Swayman thing, and I hate that we're still talking about it right now, but we have to.
Why do you hate that you're talking about it? Why do you hate that you're...
Because I think during the midpoint of the season when we were around December, January, it was like, oh, this is all Swayman's fault. And I didn't agree with it because the rest of the team was playing like absolute garbage in front of him. But Swayman's had a bad year basically all year long. And we keep hearing about things were off to start the season. And I just don't think the team ever really recovered from it. And do I think that that's the reason why this season has gone down the drain? No, but it was the first sign that things were off and wrong. And so I do think that has a cascading effect.
Okay, so have you had Swayman on your show?
Yeah,
we have.
Oh, okay.
Obviously.
Well, there we go. So now we're protecting Swayman.
Can we go back to Zadorov
and Marchand? So it's clear there was a Swayman Marchand thing, and I ask you guys, and you go to the new guys who easy, slow-moving targets for you, not the guys that you.
Zadorov was on our show.
Exactly what I'm talking. Compromised commentary.
Sweetheart.
Compromised. You guys are compromised, which I knew going in. Go ahead.
So look, you said about Zadorov, you don't know if he thought he was going to be the leader or what. So what you're telling me is he thought he was coming in as kind of a captain, and he's acted now that Marchand's gone, you can see he's sort of acting like he's in charge of the team. He was the one talking about Swayman, etc. So are you basically suggesting that Zadorov came in and wanted to introduce some sort of power struggle?
What I will say about Zadorov is I think that he didn't wait for Marchand to leave to start acting like he was the captain. I think that is his personality.
Yes.
And I think that you look at sort of his track record. We like him as a guest. We like him as a personality. His track record has not been particularly favorable in a lot of the locker rooms that he's been in. He's burned a lot of bridges. And I think that his personality is so strong and so abrasive that it can rub guys the wrong way.
So he's an a-hole.
You guys are so compromised. They are such suck-ups to the players. It's so obvious. I'm asking the wrong guys. What was going on inside the room? What stunk there between the players? And they're not going to call anyone out because they're all on the show and they're all grabbing ass with them.
Yeah, I felt like they kind of threw Zadorov under the bus a little.
Very, very politely.
And like the team was bad. Like teams can just be bad.
They shouldn't be this bad.
They shouldn't be this bad.
I agree.
They shouldn't be this bad. And something was wrong. I mean, Jesus, they fired a coach, traded the captain. The goalie comes out to fight, and the guys say, he was getting our back. Really? Is that what he was doing? No comment. Like, he's just on and on and on and on. It stunk to high heaven from day one, guys.
I also think that like part of the reason that it stunk from day one is because there haven't been enough guys who are good players and also good leaders. And I think the list of those players are very few and far between, which is why I was against the idea of trading Brad Marchand, because I thought that he was one of those few guys. But like, how many times have games got away from this team, especially late, and nobody is there to put it back on track? And I think that that's been a massive problem. I think it's a big part of the reason Jim Montgomery got fired earlier in the season is that there just wasn't enough people to get the thing back on the rails. And we've seen it the entire year long.
Do you still think Marchand's going to get 3 times 7, DJ?
I don't know. It's 7.8 was the projection for whatever his contract is or whatever he's worth on the open market. If he does something in the postseason, yeah, cap's going up. We have to say it 10 times a show. So $7.8 million a year or 7 times 3 for him is not as crazy as it sounds. I have my questions about it. If he ends up looking hurt or struggles in the postseason, probably not. But I'll just say his ask was not, based on the numbers and based on what other teams would have given him at that time, was not crazy.
I have one more question I want to ask DJ, but we can do it now or later.
Now, well, that's it. These guys are done.
Okay, so DJ, I'm looking at the goalies in the league, and Swayman's obviously had a terrible year. His save percentage is .895, which is 36th in the league. Do you know who's behind him?
Is it the jersey that's behind me?
Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner. Your bum friend, Stuart Skinner. What happened to Stuart Skinner, DJ? Huh? What happened?
You want someone who we protect, who we grab ass for? All right, I'll give you that. Stuart Skinner. Yeah, he's stunk this season. But it goes to a point that Ryan Lambert made on our show when we were talking about goalie contracts when Shesterkin got paid, which is there's like 2 or 3 really good goalies, like elite goalies.
Yeah, he's not one of them.
And then after that, there's a million goalies who, like Swayman, can be awesome. Don't suck, can be awesome, or can be inconsistent. And Skinner has had a bad year.
Yeah, who's inconsistent means he sucks. That's what it means.
Hey, who is the best goalie?
You swallowed your words about Stuart Skinner during last year's playoff run.
Not in the end, I didn't. Nope, they came right back up.
The playoffs last year.
They came right back up. He blows. I knew he would revert to form. He blows.
Man. I mean, I respect that the one thing you'll grapple to with or the thing that you'll hold on to dearly is Stu Skinner sucks, because every hockey fan will agree with you.
Oh, no, there's a lot that we'll cling on to, like Jeremy.
I couldn't even find his name on the list this morning when I went.
How come we're not talking about the absolutely pimp season that David Pasternak's having, Mike?
We can. I mean, I think he's sort of shown well here down the stretch. I said last night he should be the captain next year if you have to have one. I think they shouldn't have one, But if you have to have one, he deserves it more than McAvoy. He has shown me a little something.
I know a real player when I see one. Imagine this kid is not that good. Imagine how many goals he'd have if he played against Stuart Skinner every night.
All right, guys.
Maybe. Well, we'll have to wait for that cup final. Maybe next year.
Thanks for coming on. We do appreciate it. May not sound like it, but I do appreciate it.
See you guys later
guys.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.